out, everyone. Thank you for tuning in with Dr. Leisha, the preacher. Okay. Hmm. Well, I believe that possibly for the first time ever, I am becoming more of myself than ever before. I went from family life, leaving home at age 18, going to college, stayed in the dorms and all that. I stayed in the science dorm. I was a pre-pharmacy major. I had been working at our local drugstore since age 13. So it was logical to go to pre-pharmacy school. So I did. I was an honor student in high school, among many, many, many other things like cheerleading and dance and just so much stuff. And I dated and, drove and, just had a full life. I had a full, complete life that I had managed and dealt with before heading to college. When I left for college, I left all of my Detroit ways behind and headed to a new world. While I was in college, I met my first husband, and we actually got married while I was in college. During I had completed 2 years, so I had already gotten my associate's degree and was working on my bachelor's degree. And I was 20 years old, and we got married. So I went from family life to married life. And I was a legally married woman all the way really clear through to my 50s. I'm 55 right now, and I've been divorced for just a couple years. I did have two marriages. The first marriage lasted five and a half years. We dated 2 years. So that was like a 7.5 year process. And then the second marriage, there were only 3 months between the marriages. So when the first marriage legally ended, we were already physically apart for a year. And then the marriage legally finalized. And then 3 months later, I was legally married again. And so, you know, and that marriage lasts for 25 years until um, he left. He left for another woman and married her. So, and the first marriage ended ultimately because, you know, other women. And one of the women that he was seeing from the first marriage, he married her. And so this second marriage ended the same way. And I had issues with women during that marriage as well. So I spent 32 years in married family life, raised 4 children total. Two I gave birth to in the first marriage. And then during the second marriage, he and I adopted 2 children and raised those kids too. So when you add it all up, it was 32 years of legal marriage. And, you know, there were great days and then there were, horrible days, like any other family marriage. So Now I'm 55 years old, divorced, and and like I said, possibly for the first time in my life, I get to be me. I get to do what I want to do, within the law, within the law and stuff. No one has that amount of freedom where they can just do whatever they want, whenever they want, without any consideration of anyone, anywhere, any system. No one has that amount of freedom. But within the law and stuff, I'm independent now. I've never been independent before. This is my first time. And at first I was, very afraid of it, especially, to experience independence for the first time in your 50s. It's just scary. I just don't have any experience with it. And so, there were opportunities to be exclusive with, a couple of guys after my husband left me. But, I really decided that I want to give myself a chance, guys. You know, I didn't want to, I mean, a part of me did want to, secure another, not so much legal marriage, but just secure another relationship that would be similar to what I was used to, you know, whether legal or not. There are ways to secure properties and land and things without being legally married. So I had considered that. But then I said, you know what? I don't even want to do that. I really just want to give myself a chance. If I can love myself the way that I loved my husband's, if I can support myself the way I supported my husband's, like the first marriage, we started a family business and he still run that business today. I gave it all up to him and never really benefited from it, financially or anything like that. But, you know, to this day, he still runs it. And it's, basically a generational skill. You know, he and I created two generations. We have two daughters and eight grandchildren together. And so one of our daughters learned the family business inside and out, and she's, able to transfer that to a third generation. So that was a very beneficial marriage, even though it ended in divorce, is still alive. It's still doing its work. The second marriage, um, we adopted two kids together, you know, and that marriage was a 25-year marriage. But I've known him since ninth grade, though. I've known him since ninth grade. My second marriage is someone that I knew in high school. And it was a very, very complicated marriage, extremely complicated marriage. So I decided, instead of being afraid of myself, instead of being afraid of matriarchy, instead of being afraid of independence, instead of being afraid of using my own brain, I have a PhD, guys. There's nothing wrong with my brain. I might be cray cray, but no matter how crazy I am, it doesn't affect my, I still know how to read, the books and interpret what I'm reading. You know what I'm saying? You know. So just like, like in the music industry or something. Some of those people are really, really like crazy, you know, but they still sing beautifully. They still, we still go to their concerts and support them no matter how crazy they are. So, I'm just one of those crazy people who love intellectual stuff, who love biblical stuff, who love political things, who sacrifice to no end for family life. You know, the second marriage was very challenging, but that's where I earned my PhD. The first marriage, I earned a bachelor's degree. The second marriage, I earned my master's. No, between husbands was like a year, even though it was only 3 months legally between marriages, but there was a year, you know, that I took to get a master's degree real quick before I got married again. If there's such a thing as a quickie master's degree, well, I pulled it off, okay? On my Martin Luther King, uh, Caesar Chavez, Rosa Parks scholarship. Okay. So anyway, oh guys, if you could click like, if you could hit the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. Thank you. So anyway, instead of, recommitting, you know, and I had a couple of strong possibilities, but I really, really want to give myself a chance. I'm a 55. What do I have to lose? At my age, hit the wall, old, unwanted, black, whatever. um, what do I have to lose by trying? I prepared my whole life to be independent. I just never had a chance to because I allowed family life to dominate. Even though I was, seeking education and whatever I did for myself, I would do for my spouses. So when I got my master's degree, I had to encourage my, second husband to get his. He already had his bachelor's degree. He is an engineer, and so, um, even though I was mostly a stay-at-home wife and mom, a substitute teacher in our kids' school district, um, you know, I helped my husband, stay encouraged with education too, um, all the way to a PhD with me, so that's just how I am. So if I can just put all of what I put into myself and all of what I put into spouses, if I can bottle all that up and put it into myself, my 2 daughters, and my 8 grandchildren, I think I'll get more bang for my buck generationally. The long term effect would be greater in my case. Based on my age and stage of life, it makes most sense to focus on my own bloodline. Kaden does? Oh, okay. Oh, my key is, it's either in my purse or my coat pocket, which is the purple coat. Um, yeah, so Now if I put in 32 years as a married woman. So I truly value doing that. I, I check that box in my life. So I'm not trying to cheat the system. I put in 32 years being married to men that basically cheated on me the whole time. You know what I'm saying? I don't recommend, that, but, that's what I had to endure in order to make sure my kids had enough men in their lives. All I can do is apologize to my kids for not, you know, having the ability to pull um, the kind of men that would be there for them long term. You know what I mean? That would be there for them every day. The only thing I can do is myself be here. I'm here. I'm here. Rain or shine, I'm here. So all I can do is apologize between the two men that I legally committed to. All I can do is apologize that they're not here. That's all I can do. I put in 32 years. So, and I'm still here. So that's all I can do. But I really believe that at this stage and age of my life, that is best that I do not commit, legally in any kind of way to people outside of my children and grandchildren. So I don't mind, meeting up with people, having fun, and things like that. But I'm not interested in, like committed relationships, you know. If for some reason on my journey I meet perhaps a couple that want to, you know, get a place or something like that, that might work for me, possibly. But for the most part, I'm content. I'm content where I'm at. And I'd like to build from here. And whatever I build, based on how I have loved my husbands and helped build them to the point where they're on their next levels, living their best lives. They're on their next levels, living their best lives. You know, I treated them as well as I treated myself. They just didn't do that for me. Because if they had treated me as well as they're treating themselves, then I would be at their level too. And that there is how I'm able to explain the eternal deficit of mankind, a theory that I've been developing and working on since my first divorce. And then going through my second divorce, it was almost like I was living out my own research. My second divorce became like the proof and the evidence. And about halfway through the marriage, I realized that and recognized it and was able to find a way to market it so that when he leave me, because I knew he was going, he made it very clear he didn't want me anymore about halfway through the marriage. I knew I had to do something to create independence from when he is gone because he was not the kind of man that will allow me to have independence with him. So I had to create it while I was with him, although it's being manifested now after he's gone. The creation of it was during the marriage, but the manifestation of my independence is happening now while I'm talking to you. The eternal deficit of mankind theory proves that mankind owes Most High because of the deficit that women experience after divorce. We live in a world right now that's trying to say that, you know, women don't deserve anything after a divorce. Well, Most High doesn't agree. And he's giving me the theory, the experience, and the ability to communicate it a little bit at a time as I go on this channel. I'm rolling it out. And I want to thank you all who have been supporting me from day one. I appreciate you all. Thank you so much. And for those of you who are new, you know, I have like 5,800 videos on here. Catch up, y'all. Binge watch, knock yourself out. Please click the like button, the subscribe button, the notification bell. Keep up with your girl. I'm not monetized anywhere on social media yet. The only thing that I live on right now is alimony. That's it. I don't receive welfare. Um, I do eat free food from the local pantries and things like that. Every once in a while, I get to take myself out. You know, and I advertise it on the show, on this channel. You know, and I'm just here for my kids and grandkids, and I'm trying to, become independent. But I want to offer a product. I want to offer a science book, you know, based on biblical and experience in life, you know. So yeah, you can donate to my channel. I do have PayPal. It's Dr. Leisha the Preacher. Thank you all for your support. Be blessed and have a great day.